Ryan, I'm so sorry. Victoria whispered through her tears, her hands shaking as she pulled out her phone. I should have told you months ago, but I was terrified. She's been having an affair with Derek from her office since October. I felt the world tilt sideways. My wife, Melissa, the woman who still left little notes in my lunchbox, having an affair for 6 months? I have proof, Victoria continued, showing me her phone screen. Screenshots of everything. She tells me about their hotel meetings, their lunch breaks at his apartment. She even sends me pictures of gifts he gives her. As I stared at months of evidence sprawled across Victoria's phone, one thought consumed me. How many people had been watching my marriage crumble while I remained completely clueless? Welcome. This is Cheating Fact, real accounts of deception and justice. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. My name is Ryan, and what you just heard was the moment my entire world exploded in a downtown coffee shop. Let me tell you how I got to that devastating conversation with my wife's best friend. 8 months earlier, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Melissa and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. She worked as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized tech company, and I was a project manager at an engineering firm. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our weekend plans that seemed to make us both happy. Victoria had been Melissa's best friend since college and was practically family to us. She came to our barbecues, joined us for game nights, and was always around for holidays. Victoria worked in HR at a different company, so she and Melissa would often meet for lunch to discuss their respective office drama. I trusted Victoria completely. She was like the sister I never had. But sitting in that coffee shop, looking at evidence of my wife's betrayal, I realized Victoria had been living with this secret for months. Every dinner we'd shared, every conversation we'd had, every time she'd looked me in the eye and asked how I was doing, she'd known my wife was cheating. The signs had been there, but I'd missed them completely. It started around October when Melissa began staying late at work more frequently. Not every night, but maybe 2 or 3 times a week. She'd text me around 5:30 saying she had to finish up a project or help with a campaign deadline. Standard workplace stuff that happens in any job. Then I noticed she was dressing differently for work. Not dramatically, just more put together. She started wearing perfume on days she never used to, paying more attention to her hair and makeup. When I complimented her on looking nice, she'd brush it off and say she was just trying to be more professional. The phone behavior was what should have been my biggest red flag. Melissa had always been casual about her phone. She'd leave it on the counter while showering, ask me to check her messages while she was driving. But suddenly, her phone was always face down, always within arm's reach. She'd take it with her to the bathroom, keep it on her nightstand instead of charging it in the kitchen like she used to. One Saturday morning, I was making coffee when her phone buzzed on the counter. Without thinking, I glanced over and saw a preview of a text. "Can't wait to see you Monday morning," from someone named Derek. The message preview cut off there, but something about the tone felt wrong. When I asked Melissa who Derek was, she said he was a new guy in their marketing department, and they were working on a project together. Now, looking at Victoria's evidence in that coffee shop, I could see that project was code for their affair. What made everything worse was realizing that Victoria had been suffering too. Around November, she started acting completely different around me. Victoria had always been chatty, friendly, asking about my work and cracking jokes during our get-togethers. But suddenly, she couldn't make eye contact with me. She'd seem nervous when I walked into a room, and she stopped asking me direct questions. It was like she was walking on eggshells whenever I was around. The breaking point came during Melissa's birthday dinner in March. We went to her favorite restaurant with Victoria and a few other friends. Throughout dinner, Victoria kept glancing between Melissa and me with this pained expression on her face. When Melissa went to the bathroom, Victoria immediately excused herself and followed. They were gone for 15 minutes. When they came back, Victoria looked like she'd been crying, and Melissa seemed agitated. The rest of dinner was awkward, with forced conversation and uncomfortable silences. Now I understood what had happened in that bathroom. Victoria had been begging Melissa to end the affair, and Melissa had probably threatened to cut her off if she said anything to me. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention to patterns. Melissa's late nights always seemed to coincide with days when she was particularly happy in the morning. She'd be humming in the shower, extra affectionate during breakfast, almost glowing. Then she'd come home from these late work sessions seeming satisfied but distant. like her mind was somewhere else. I also noticed that Victoria had stopped initiating plans with us. Before, she'd text constantly about getting together for dinner or seeing a movie. Now, she only responded when Melissa reached out first. And even then, she seemed reluctant to commit to anything. The worst part was watching Victoria during our interactions. She'd start to say something to me, then catch herself and change the subject. She'd look at me like she wanted to tell me something important, but couldn't bring herself to do it. The guilt was written all over her face. In April, everything started accelerating toward that confrontation in the coffee shop. Melissa announced she had to work late again on a Thursday night. She seemed particularly excited about it, which struck me as odd since she usually complained about late nights. She spent extra time getting ready that morning, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Around 8 that evening, I was grocery shopping when I spotted Victoria's car in the parking lot of a restaurant across town. This wasn't near her house or her office. It was completely out of her way. Something compelled me to walk over and look through the window. Victoria was sitting alone at a table, staring at her phone with tears streaming down her face. She looked absolutely miserable, like she was carrying the weight of the world. I almost went in to check on her, but something held me back. When I got home, I couldn't shake the image of Victoria crying alone in that restaurant. Combined with all the strange behavior I'd been witnessing, I knew something was seriously wrong. The next morning, I made the decision that led to our coffee shop confrontation. I called Victoria and asked if we could meet. Just the two of us. Victoria agreed, but I could hear the nervousness in her voice. We met that Saturday at a cafe downtown, and she looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in weeks. She kept fidgeting with her coffee cup and avoiding eye contact. "Victoria," I said gently, "I know something's wrong. I can see it's eating you alive. Whatever it is, you can tell me." That's when she broke down and revealed everything, leading to those devastating words I opened with. As I scrolled through the evidence on Victoria's phone, the scope of Melissa's betrayal became clear. Screenshots of text conversations between Melissa and Derek planning their hookups. Photos Melissa had sent to Victoria of gifts Derek had given her. Even pictures of them together at hotels during their supposed late work nights. The betrayal was complete and thorough. Not only was my wife cheating, but she was bragging about it to her best friend, treating our marriage like a joke. The conversations revealed that Melissa and Derek had been intimate dozens of times, usually during those late work nights, but sometimes during lunch breaks at his apartment. They'd even spent a weekend together at a resort while Melissa told me she was at a work conference. The most devastating part was reading how Melissa described me to Derek. She complained that I was boring, predictable, too focused on practical things like our budget and home improvements. She said I didn't excite her anymore. That being with Derek made her remember what passion felt like. Meanwhile, Derek was married too. His wife had no idea, just like I'd had no idea. We were both living lies while our spouses played house together. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked Victoria. "I kept hoping she'd come to her senses and end it," Victoria explained. "I begged her to stop, told her she was making a terrible mistake. But she said she was happy, happier than she'd been in years. She said you two had grown apart, and that Derek made her feel alive again. She threatened to cut me out of her life completely if I told you." The weight of her confession hit me. Victoria had been trapped between loyalty to her best friend and doing what was right. She'd chosen wrong initially, but the guilt had been destroying her. Victoria handed me her phone. "Take pictures of everything," she said. "You deserve to know the truth, and you deserve to protect yourself." I spent the next hour documenting months of evidence. Every screenshot, every photo, every conversation that proved my marriage was a lie. Armed with proof, I drove straight to a lawyer's office. I wanted to understand my options before confronting Melissa. The attorney explained that while infidelity doesn't dramatically affect divorce proceedings in our state, having proof of the affair could help with certain aspects of asset division, especially since Melissa had been spending marital funds on her relationship with Derek. That evening came the moment I'd been dreading. I confronted Melissa by laying printouts of her conversations with Derek across our kitchen table and watching her face go white. She tried to deny it at first, then blamed Victoria for betraying her confidence. When those tactics failed, she broke down and admitted everything. She said she'd never meant for it to go so far, that it started as harmless flirting that spiraled out of control. I was going to end it, she claimed. I just needed time to figure out how. but the evidence showed otherwise. Her most recent messages with Derek were about planning a vacation together. She hadn't been trying to end anything. She'd been planning to escalate it. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. Melissa's affair had professional consequences too. When Derek's wife found out, and I made sure she did, she contacted their company's HR department. Dating between employees wasn't explicitly forbidden, but conducting an affair while both parties were married to other people created a hostile work environment that violated company policy. Derek was transferred to a different division, and Melissa was given a formal warning. The romantic excitement of their secret relationship didn't survive the harsh reality of public exposure and professional embarrassment.
Victoria and I rebuilt our friendship slowly. She moved to a different city for a new job, partly because she couldn't handle the constant reminders of her role in the deception. She sends me updates occasionally, and she's been going to therapy to work through the guilt of staying silent for so long. The hardest lesson I learned was that sometimes the people closest to you will choose the wrong loyalty. Victoria was caught between two friends, but her silence enabled Melissa's betrayal to continue for months longer than it should have. Looking back, I'm grateful that Victoria finally found the courage to tell me the truth. Those months of evidence made my divorce proceedings much smoother, and knowing the full scope of Melissa's deception helped me move forward without second-guessing my decision. Today, I'm in a relationship with someone who understands the importance of honesty and transparency. We've both been through betrayal, and we've built something stronger because of that shared experience. If someone you trust is acting strange around you, pay attention. If your spouse's behavior patterns change dramatically, investigate. And if you're the friend who knows about an affair, remember that staying silent makes you complicit in the betrayal. The truth always comes out eventually. It's better to be the person who speaks up than the person who enables destruction through silence. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe for more real accounts of betrayal and justice. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been in Victoria's position, knowing something you felt you couldn't tell?